Excellencies, friends, and colleagues, good morning. I'm Melissa Fleming, UN Undersecretary General for Global Communications, and it is such an honor to welcome you to today's observance of the International Day of Peace. And this is marked all over the world every year on the 21st of September and right here at UN headquarters in New York. This is a day that represents the core aspirations of our organization, the pursuit of peace and a world free of violence and strife. I would like to begin by thanking the wonderful young violinists from the Tarumi program, as well as the United Nations singers for the wonderful music that just set the tone for today's observance. The theme of this year's observance is cultivating a culture of peace. And it reminds us that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but it's also the prevention of conflict. To develop a culture of peace means to reject hate. It means shunning violence and embracing dialogue. It also requires investment in the work of the United Nations and its Sustainable Development Goals. Where there is education, there is opportunity. Where there is respect for human rights, there is equality. Where there is trust, there is hope. And where there is hope, there can be peace. Since this International Day was established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1981, we have seen far too many wars. And we are all yearning for a true culture of peace, for our children and for our future generations. It is now my pleasure to welcome the United Nations Secretary General, as well as His Excellency, Mr. Philemon Yang, the President of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I am also pleased to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Yamazaki Kazuki, Permanent Representative of Japan, and Mrs. Yamazaki Yuko. We are also honored to be joined today by Takashi Seiko, founder of the Association for the Preservation of the UN Peace Bell, and the daughter of Mr. Chiyoji Nakagawa, who is the donor of this wonderful Peace Bell. Mr. Abe Shinichiro, designer of the Japanese garden, where we are currently standing, is also with us. Thank you for being here today and for your commitment to peace. And I am now pleased to pass the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we come together today to sound the call for peace. Here at the United Nations, peace is our raison d'être, our guiding light, and our founding creed. Yet peace is under threat. War is on the march. From the Middle East to Sudan, Ukraine and beyond, we see bullets and bombs maim and kill, bodies piled high, populations traumatized, and buildings reduced to rubble. And meanwhile, the foundations of a peaceful world are fracturing. Geopolitical divisions are widening, inequalities are growing, disinformation is fanning the flames of hate. New technologies are being weaponized without guardrails. And the climate crisis is fueling instability, depleting resources, and forcing people from their homes. International institutions must be better positioned to respond. And we have a chance for change. Later this month, at the Summit of the Future, we can begin the process of reform and revitalization. By adapting multilateral institutions to today's reality, instead of the reality of the Second World War. By advancing a new agenda for peace, by revitalizing the Sustainable Development Goals, by protecting human rights, by tackling the point where climate and security meet, by agreeing guardrails on new technologies in conflict, by defending and advancing gender equality, by combating racism and discrimination, and by securing full and meaningful participation in civic life and peace building, particularly young people, women and girls, and other historically marginalized communities. In short, we must cultivate a culture of peace. That is the theme of this year's International Day of Peace. And it is a cause all of us, devotees of peace and justice, must rally behind this day and every day through the Summit of the Future and beyond. That is the call we make today. May it ring out around the world. And before I sound the peace bell, please join me in a moment of silence to reflect on the meaning and necessity of peace and the way in which each of us can nurture the conditions needed for a peaceful world to flourish.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. And please now join me in welcoming the President of the General Assembly, His Excellency, Mr. Philemon Yang.
Your Excellency, Mr. Yamazaki Kazuyuki, Permanent Representative of Japan, and your esteemed spouse, Her Excellency Mrs. Yamazaki Yuko, His Excellency the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Under Secretary General Melissa Fleming, distinguished delegates. It is an honor to join you today to commemorate the 43rd International Day of Peace. I express my sincere thanks to Ambassador Yamazaki and the permanent mission of Japan for gathering us to this tradition, to honor this tradition. The Peace Bell, donated to the United Nations 70 years ago, stands as a solemn symbol of the ideal of peace within and among nations. Cast from coins donated by 60 countries, it is a creation, like the United Nations itself, forged in a crucible, its sum and size much larger than its many unique parts. When molded together and resounded in unison, they send a powerful message. Member states pledge to the Charter of the United Nations to practice tolerance, live together in peace with one another as good neighbors. Yet today, we are witnessing the opposite, such as growing rhetoric of isolation and exclusion inside and beyond our politics, intolerance of the other, fueling tensions between faiths, cultures, and creeds, a rising tide of violence and conflict, amplifying the suffering and despair. All of it tearing at the fabric of communities, widening the inequalities we vowed to close. Nearly 80 years after the founding of the United Nations, it is time to recommit to the principles of the UN Charter, the constitution of our multilateral system. It is time to restore trust and solidarity within our family of nations. The The Summit of the Future offers a historic opportunity to strengthen the tools of cooperation among nations and advance the cause of sustainable peace. From Ukraine and Gaza to Sudan, Myanmar, Haiti, and elsewhere, people are desperately looking for a glimmer of hope, an end to conflicts and strife. Let us ring the peace bell today and send a message of hope for peace. Let us work towards tolerance and dialogue. And in so doing, we can also accelerate progress towards sustainable development and ensure universal respect for the human dignity of everyone, everywhere. I thank you.
President of the General Assembly for his remarks, and this concludes today's ceremony. I wish to thank all of you who joined us today, here in person and also remotely, for this annual tradition that honors the fundamental aspiration of people, the pursuit of peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, he's so shy. Can we take a picture, please? Please. Thank you. Move this.
sing. Today I was with a cold that couldn't sing in the church. Everybody asked me for why.
Have two.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Guys, bravo. Bravo. Good. Thank you very much.